All right, everybody. I'm back to Chainsaw Man. Well, I finished it actually. I binged it last night and I managed to finish the entire series or part one, everything that's out so far. So I have finished Chainsaw Man and I can give you my full, well rounded thoughts on it. And if you're curious, the other Chainsaw Man video I made, it got copyright striked and that's why it's not on the channel right now. I'm fighting against the claim, so hopefully it'll be back up in like a week or two, but that's why it's not on there. I didn't delete it or anything. It just Shueisha's kind of a douche when it comes to these things. As well, in this video, I can't show you a bunch of manga panels like I did last time, even though I try to get around it with the background moving and the logo and everything. I guess they still didn't like it. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to look at a plain image on the screen. I apologize about that. I try to make my videos a little bit more interesting visually to look at, but if Shueisha is going to be like that, then this is really the only way around it. So I apologize for that. Sorry if that's boring, but let's get right into the Chainsaw Man review. I'm going to try to break this down into a couple of different main points that I want to hit, and I'm going to try to make this as spoiler-free as possible. If after this video you want me to do sort of an in-depth spoiler video on a particular scene or topic in Chainsaw Man, I'll definitely consider doing that. But for now, I'm just going to kind of keep it as an overall sort of review. That way, even if you've never seen Chainsaw Man and you watch this, maybe it'll give you an idea on if it would be something for you or not. Now, if you think I'm going to praise the hell out of this series and say that it's the new gold standard of what a manga should be and that it's a masterpiece, it's a 10 out of 10, I'm not going to do that. But if you also think I'm going to sit here and shit on it and say that it's super overrated and stupid and you shouldn't check it out at all, I'm not going to do that either. I'm actually kind of somewhere in the middle. I did not love this series, but there's definitely a lot of things in it that I thought were really cool and creative and really fun to read. And there's definitely some very solid moments in here, even emotionally, which I wasn't expecting. So I think there is some good stuff and some definite merit into why people praise Chainsaw Man and why people, put on such a high pedestal. Even though it might not crack my top 10 or anything like that, I definitely don't think it's trash, and I don't think it's something to completely disregard whatsoever. There are just a lot of things in it that didn't work for me also, or things that I wish maybe were done a little bit differently. The gist of Chainsaw Man is we exist in this world where devils exist, and it takes a lot of inspiration from older manga that have come before it, both in the shonen genre and specifically Devil Man. If you've never read Devil Man, I think that would actually be a really good precursor to Chainsaw Man, because there's a lot of kind of references into even how the devils work and how they merge with humans and connect their powers and abilities and stuff like that. There's a lot of kind of references and homages to Devil Man in Chainsaw Man, so I thought that was really cool, and having read Devil Man recently, it was fresh in my mind, so I got to pick out all those little references, and I thought that was really cool. It's this world where devils exist, and the devils kind of come about by mankind's fear of particular things, and one thing that I thought was really interesting is that one of the most powerful devils that exists is the gun devil, which people, by and large, guns are very deadly, they're everywhere, people can attain them that shouldn't obtain them. There's a lot of fear revolving around guns, particularly in my country, in America. There's always a huge debate between, pro-gun and anti-gun and everything like that. And with Japan, where the story, I don't know if the story takes place there, but as far as the genre of manga and everything, coming up with a gun devil, it talks about the complete evisceration that the gun devil was able to do to particular places, and sort of always reminds me of that sort of atomic bomb history that Japan has. That's thrown into a lot of manga and a lot of stories, and rightfully so, because it's such a huge, made such a huge impact in that country, so it would make sense that that's kind of thrown in there too. But besides all that, basically what's going on is there's this group of devil hunters that exist that kind of go out and quell these demons and devils that are out there. And our main character, Denji, gets brought into that group because he actually assimilates with a little devil called Pochita, which is this little chainsaw devil dog thing. It's really cute, which also means people must fear chainsaws in some way. And when Denji's on the verge of death, they kind of make a contract and he assimilates with him, and thus Denji can invoke his power and become Chainsaw Man, where he literally has chainsaw blades coming out of his arms and face. Now, it's sort of interesting to take something called Chainsaw Man and wonder how you're supposed to approach this series. Is it a comedy? Is it a parody? You expect it to be over the top and outlandish, and it definitely is. And it kind of really toes that line in between being so outrageous that it's full-on comedy, but at the same time it also does deal with things that are a little bit deeper, but it takes some time in order to really kind of get into that and to fall into those roles to see sort of the deeper side. Because by reading the first 20 some chapters that I did in my first review, I really didn't kind of see what Chainsaw Man was getting at overall. And I think that actually is sort of a detriment to the series. I feel like the first couple of chapters and how things go, I feel like it's kind of hard to understand exactly what tone that the series is going for or what kind of themes it's trying to tackle, because it just seems to go from one thing to the other, and it bounces back and forth between all these different devils and whatnot and all these different missions that Denji is going on. And alongside of that, you have Denji's personality and character type, which on the surface level that you see within those first 20, 30, even like up to 40 chapters, pretty much until Reizi was introduced, or I don't know how to pronounce her name, but the girl that the quote unquote love interest that's introduced about halfway through. You know what I'm talking about if you've read it. But Denji as a character was very hard for me to latch on to, because at first he's a very simplistic person, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it makes him a little bit harder to relate to, I guess. But Denji's simplistic goals and aspirations and what he wants to accomplish pretty much results around women. Pretty much, you know, he wants to grab some titties, which I mean, I can understand that. But his drives and motivations really kind of stem around this. And I believe there is a deeper aspect to it that the series gets into later on. But I feel like the first run going through it, it kind of makes Denji, I guess, hard to relate to, number one, but also it kind of makes him seem like really selfish. And I guess that's the point, right? He's supposed to be. And also Denji, you know, he does a lot of things that made me roll my eyes as far as, you know, his motivations and whatnot. I was trying really hard to figure out if this was supposed to be a comedy, like if I'm supposed to be laughing at Denji fighting to the bitter end so that he can touch some boobs, or if I'm supposed to be looking at him with this sort of like sadness and disdain. Like, is it supposed to be, you know, something depressing, like, oh my god, this is all that matters to this guy, like what the hell? Or am I supposed to be like, that's hilarious, I love boobs also, let's get it, Denji? Like, I wasn't really sure that line to toe of where I should align myself, and I guess maybe it's a little bit of both. But now, like I said, as the series kind of goes on, I don't want to say Denji gets particularly deeper as a character, or that he matures in a way that like Kurono does from Gantz that I really appreciated, because I do see in the beginning of the series a lot of similarities between Denji and Kurono, but Kurono goes on this huge character arc journey that I really, really liked, whereas Denji, I feel like he doesn't particularly evolve that much. He does have character development, but not to that extent. It's more of like he doesn't realize it himself. It's us as the audience that has to kind of put things together into why he acts the way he does, or the things that he wants. And the things that I kind of got out of it as time went on is that he has no sort of guiding force, guiding figure, because it is mentioned that his parents are gone, and his dad got caught up with the mob and everything like that, and he had an abusive childhood and whatnot. So, but it's all like, it's not really explicitly stated. We don't really get to see a lot of it. So what I'm getting out of that is that Denji never really had this sort of paternal or maternal figure within his life. He never sort of had this guidance, sort of this person that's able to embrace him and say that everything is okay. And as the series goes on, when it reaches its halfway point and kind of goes further than that, it talks a little bit more about connecting between people and how people go about it differently, and that if you have, you know, one type of personality, that it's difficult for you to connect with other people with a opposing sort of personality. Like, even though if you're attracted to each other, even though if there's something there between you, the ways you communicate are different. And so Denji is sort of this person that just really needs to be, or not needs to, but has this desire to be coddled in a way, that just needs to be told that he's all right, that he's not, you know, wasting his life, that he's not a waste of space, that he has some sort of potential. Like, he's looking for that sort of pat on the back, I feel like. And I feel like that leads into his simping, as I talked about in the first video, when it comes to Makima, or just women in general, but pretty much just Makima, where, you know, he's even willing to be a dog for her. I'm not going to elaborate on that. You can read the series for yourself, but it's easier for him to just kind of listen to somebody and obey them and to do what they want, so that he doesn't have to think for himself. And this is a serious psychological problem that's played up for comedy, but then is also kind of twisted into being serious. And so, like, I feel like for Denji, what he really needs to do for himself is be able to find his own self-worth within himself, which he kind of sort of does by the end of the series, but I wanted it to delve a little bit more into that. I wanted to delve into more of him exploring who he is as a person, and not just the desires of what he wants, of how to connect to somebody, but also who he is as a person. And maybe some people out there got a lot of that out of this, and I just didn't see it because, I mean, I always say fiction is different for everybody. Everybody resonates with things differently. I'll probably see things that you didn't see. You saw things that I won't see. I mean, everybody comes at things differently, and it all has to do with who we are, coming into the story as well as what the author is trying to tell us. But I think the main issue was Denji's ability to connect. And I do think that was portrayed very well from the middle portion towards the end of the series. It becomes a lot more clear that is the issue at hand, that Denji does not feel self-worth within himself, and that he also has a horrible time connecting to people because he never sort of learned that from a younger age. So I completely understand that, and moving forward from that. Now, the other character I want to talk about is Makima, and I thought she was probably... and actually, I'm going to preface this because if the Masked Man watches this video, I promise I'm not... I am not a Makima simp, I promise. But what I will say is that I thought she was probably the most interesting character to me to read. I thought whenever she came on screen, the series really lit up. I thought she really brought a lot to the momentum of the storyline. I really thought that the mystery and intrigue of her character was really good. Honestly, I think she's the best character in Chainsaw Man. And she is also assimilated with a devil, which is the Control Devil. So we have Denji, with a chainsaw devil, but his problem is needing to have that figure to sort of pat him on the back and tell him he's a good boy. And then Makima, it directly coincides with her ability of control, whereas she knows how to control Denji, so she can put herself in that role of this sort of like superior female figure who is offering, prizes of her body, or a date with her, or to touch her breast or something like that. So she's offering these sort of sexual and comforting things to him. And it's kind of weird because it really kind of gets into like the psychology of like how men and women relate to each other and things like that, and the things that we look for. But like in a very general sense, like a lot of the times men look for a woman that will comfort them, and whether that comes from like a psychological maternal thing from when we were children, I don't know, but really it comes to the idea of like they sort of like get us out of our own heads. They get us out of thinking of our anxieties and depressions and whatnot. And when you can like embrace yourself with a woman, everything else kind of goes away and you feel that sort of comfort. And I feel like Denji was always looking for the comfort level, and Makima played into that and played up her femininity and her feminine wiles and stuff to help control and get Denji to do what she wanted. But like the interesting thing about Makima is that she will change her type of control depending on what kind of person she is dealing with. So with Denji, it was one kind of specific type, but there's other characters and other moments where she does things a little bit of a different way. So she's this very like smart, intuitive character that is always kind of 2 steps ahead of everybody because she can sort of understand how what their desire is and sort of manipulate it in a way to where she can literally control them, which I thought that was really cool. And there's a great scene I want to mention that kind of displays this between Makima and Denji. It's a scene where they actually do kind of go out on a date or something like that, and they go to a movie, and they're watching through all these different movies trying to get some sort of emotional reaction. Not necessarily, it's not like explicitly stated that that's what they're trying to do, but they keep going to movie after movie and they think all of them suck, they feel bland, and then finally one movie, they actually do have like an emotional reaction. Denji starts crying, and then he looks over and Makima's kind of tearing up too. And I think it was really interesting because it's something that they can't do just kind of person to person with their own interactions, but it took something that they were able to see in order to kind of make them feel those feelings that they're not getting. Because if Denji is, using the word again, simping towards Makima, what she's giving him is not genuine, and so there's not that real connection there. And if Makima only wants something from somebody and doesn't actually look at who the person is, she's not feeling anything either. So you could have this sort of intimacy between 2 people, but if it's not genuine, if it's this kind of like transactional thing where you get something and I get something, and it's not just giving care to somebody because you want to give care to somebody, there's no emotional tie there. And so I thought it was really cool that they would see this movie scene with characters there that were embracing, and they would be able to have that sort of like emotional reaction to it as if it's something that is unobtainable to either of them. I thought that was probably honestly, I thought that and the final chapter were the best moments in Chainsaw Man by far. And the other thing that I want to praise about it is, of course, the creature designs and the action sequences, which I think is where Chainsaw Man thrives. For me, well, one I'll say is that I love crazy monsters and creature designs. I love Berserk and Gantz and all of these stories. So whenever you have like a horror movie monster type thing, or demon or creature, alien, whatever it is, I love really unique designs, and I will say that Chainsaw Man definitely 100% comes at devils at a very in a very creative way. Some of them are kind of silly looking, but other ones are downright terrifying. The haunting imagery very much reminded me of things that you would find in like Gantz or something like that. So I thought that was really cool. The action sequences are also very well done. They're pretty hyped up. For me, sometimes it was harder to get invested in the action scenes because I didn't really care as much about the overall situation as I wanted to. The only ones that really hit me were Denji fighting the bomb girl. That was really exciting, and of course the final battle of the series 2, which the final battle sequence actually got me like the most hyped up out of anything in the entire series. Because at first, the whole Chainsaw Man thing, it was kind of like, okay, I get it, you know, he's going wild and crazy and chopping people up. But then by the end, during like the final battle sequence, I was so on board. I was like, yes, chop them up, motherfucker. Like I was getting really excited about it. And I thought the ending of the series was really good. I thought it was poignant. It kind of brought things full circle from the first chapter. Honestly, if there wasn't a part 2 and it just ended there, I think that would be a pretty decent ending for it. So overall for me, Chainsaw Man is a series that I appreciated. There were moments in it, particular scenes, particular moments, or character dynamics that I thought were really, really well done. However, as an overall story from start to finish, there were a lot of moments in it that to me were either forgettable or just kind of didn't hit me in the way that I believe that the mangaka was trying to do it. Also, like I said, Denji as a main character, he's a very interesting person to analyze from a third-person perspective, but watching his character go through moment to moment, there's just a lot of times where I was not connected to him, or that he made me roll my eyes, or that I was kind of like annoyed with what he was doing. I wasn't quite on board with him, so there were a lot of times with Denji that I was just like, it just wasn't working for me. There is a lot of action sequences. Like I said, they're very cool, but for the most part, if you're not invested in the fighting itself, then sometimes the action scenes and chapters can come off as kind of like repetitive. So there's that. However, like I said, there are some really, really great scenes and moments within the series, especially from the second half up to the ending, which I think is superior. I think the second half of this series is where it really ramps up and starts getting a lot better. So I'm kind of in the middle with Chainsaw Man, where I can understand why people love it. I can understand why somebody would say it's a masterpiece, but I certainly don't think so. I think it's good. I think it's decent. I think there's a lot of good things in it. I think it's worth reading, but it's not something that I would put on the very tippy top of your list if you had a lot of manga that you're trying to read and get through. I wouldn't necessarily say Chainsaw Man is a 100% must read, but I will say that if you do read it and you go into it with an open mind, by the end of it, I think you will get something out of it. And I promise I'm not trying to be wishy-washy or anything. I'm not trying to make both camps happy in any way, but I just honestly got to say that I'm just kind of in the middle with Chainsaw Man. Like, I don't think it's amazing, but I don't think it's horrible either. I just think it's a series that has some really good moments, some great actions and creature designs, and is a pretty fun ride to read. That's about where I stand on it. But anyways, guys, let me know where you stand on Chainsaw Man. What do you think about the series overall? Do you think it's an absolute masterpiece? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's overrated, underrated? What do you guys think? Also, what are you looking forward to when it comes to the anime that's going to come out at some point? Are you looking forward to the studio that's doing it, or are you kind of nervous? Put all those thoughts and comments down below. And if you want to hear me go more kind of spoiler in-depth into particular things about Chainsaw Man, let me know, and I'll have a video for that for you guys too. If this video does well and people want that, I can do a couple more videos. Other than that, I'm probably not going to talk about Chainsaw Man again until either the anime drops or part 2 comes out. But you guys let me know what you want to hear. With that all out of the way, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Please give it a like, a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it if you want to. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stick around and see more reviews. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. and I'll talk to you next time.